Hello and welcome to this special interview on NDTV Profit. We have two visitors with us today. James McCormack is Head of Sovereign Ratings Asia Pacific with Fitch, and also joining us Kenneth Ritz, who's Head of and Senior Director of Financial Institutions again at Fitch. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
James, let me just start with you. You're here in India. The worries about the global economic scenario just don't seem to ease at this point in time. What is your assessment at this stage? There seems to be an uneasy calm, people perhaps hoping for the best but prepared to deal with the worst?
Well, I think that's true here in India and it's true globally. We're seeing weaker growth virtually every country that we look at. We rate just over 100 countries, and I think every country that we rate, we've got weaker growth forecasts for 2008 than in 2007. There doesn't seem to be any escape higher commodity prices and higher inflation. That's also something we're seeing commonly across all the countries that we look at. You say a little bit of calm now because some of the first quarter numbers, the first quarter of the calendar year numbers were actually quite good, including here in India. But our expectation is that growth will start to weaken as we go through the course of the year. Inflation pressures will continue to mount here and globally. So, yeah, it's not a great outlook. Higher inflation and weaker growth is a tough policy mix for central banks to deal with. So that's, again, true here and in the region and globally.
Yes, let me bring you in here. Now, how much of what we're seeing right now is still linked to and emerging from what we're seeing in the U.S. financial institutions? It started that way. Have we moved on now? Is that still the root cause of the worry?
Well, I mean, what started with as far as the structured finance securities, kind of started it, but I think the longer term, you're looking at the impact of what happens to the U.S. consumer, which is clearly under a lot of stress, and the U.S. consumer has long been the engine for not only the U.S. economy, but you could argue for the global economy, and we see the U.S. consumer currently under a lot of stress, and we would expect that to continue. So as consumption by the U.S. Consumer continues to weigh on the U.S. economy, we would expect, that can weigh on the global economy as well. That's another way that, some of the emerging issues in the U.S. can affect the global economies.
James, the U.S. consumer, that has been a big point of worry. Yes, firstly, let me get your views on the U.S. economy. We seem to have been a little better than what was expected in terms of the revisions that we saw to the GDP numbers. Some are saying we may actually escape a recession in the U.S. Where do you stand on that?
Well, if we just look at the first quarter numbers, you're right. They were probably a little bit stronger than we thought. And the consumer has been more resilient than we thought, continued to surprise on the upside. But our expectation, as Ken says, we're looking for weakness. It looks like there's really no escape for the U.S. consumer. They're heavily indebted, and personal savings rates are extremely low, virtually zero. And with housing prices continuing to decline in the U.S., the labor market is definitely starting to weaken. We're seeing employment growth year over year is now negative. And that is a classic sign of a U.S. recession. So our expectation is that although we saw reasonable growth in the first quarter, the U.S. will enter a recession, a mild recession, for just 2 quarters, which is the technical definition of a recession. Growth start to pick up towards the end of the year and continue to accelerate into next year, but still at below trend rates. So we're looking for growth this year, an annual average growth rate of 1%, and a growth rate next year of, say, 1.9%. So that is below trend growth in the U.S. So we're looking for kind of extended weakness, a moderate recovery after a mild recession.
Kenneth, are we also looking at extended weakness in the U.S. financial sector? The subprime part is over. We've taken some huge write-downs, but there are fears that the next part of weakness would come in from the consumer sector when you see credit card defaults start to pick up. So the turbulence in the U.S. financial sector perhaps is far from over, would you say?
We definitely agree with that. We expect loss rates to accelerate in a number of asset classes. Obviously subprime mortgages have been hit very hard. The second lien home equity product is already started seeing much higher losses, and we expect loss severity to increase there. We're seeing higher loss severity across other mortgage asset classes, Alt-A mortgages, prime mortgages, and as you just mentioned about the credit cards and automobiles, anything that's really consumer related, we're expecting to see increased loss rates there. So there's clearly more pain to come on the consumer side, and as far as the banks are concerned, seeing higher losses on the consumer side. Now, so if I switch to the commercial side, that continues to, perform relatively well. commercial business loans are still performing well, other than those segments that were, catered to either the housing market or the mortgage market, specifically the residential construction market in the U.S. Those areas have been weak, but otherwise, corporate, commercial business loans have performed relatively well. On non-residential construction, commercial real estate has also performed very well, with some pockets of weakness, but still performing well. We do expect some, slight downturn, slight to moderate downturn in that asset class as well. However, a lot of that's going to be dictated upon any kind of long-term economic pressure in the United States.